Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nobody's Listening. It's still true. Uh, my, my name is Matthew. Joining me tonight, out here in the Outer Rims,
Yeah,
is Rachel.
danger zone.
Yes, yes. So we're trying to catch up on all of our Star Wars stuff.
Yes.
There's going to be a Bad Batch episode, episodes 9 and 10, episode dropping a little bit later this week. But of course, we got to talk Mandalorian. Mandalorian dropped tonight, episode 2.
Yes.
If you listen
Yes.
to our last episode, I was concerned, to say the
Mhm.
least, about how
Mhm.
the stage was sort of being set, and
Yeah.
we'll discuss if I was right about anything.
I mean, you're certainly right about one thing, and I was like, "Oh, no."
So
But
before we jump into Mandalorian, there was some news,
oh,
some
really?
Star Wars news,
Okay.
and I guess this kind of dropped thing. Variety kind of broke this original story. Um, Taika Waititi, I guess
Oh,
his version of
boy.
his Star Wars movie is still a go, and he's in discussions to star in in the film that he is writing and possibly directing. It was unclear if he was directing it, which I would imagine he would. He's already directed, an episode of Mandalorian, so I would imagine he would do this. Your thoughts on Taika Waititi entering the Star Wars galaxy?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing even more so than Taika was that it looks like the Patty Jenkins thing is done. Or at
As
least
is the Kevin Feige one.
yeah, but I care less about that one. So that was my first thing. But then I mean, I love Taika Waititi. I like as a person, I think he's very charming. I think he's very funny. What We Do in the Shadows, the film that he did was amazing. I mean, he's done really great movies. Um Although maybe not was it not Ragnarok? What was
Love
the
and Thunder.
Love and Thunder? Ugh. Um but I don't know, like, I feel like he is a spice that you could put into the mix, like having IG-11 be Taika Waititi was like a fun Easter egg. I think he would be great to direct it. But if he was like a main character, that feels like a tonal mismatch for me in a way that like I think we get into like having the Lego guys directing a Han Solo movie kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, clearly it's going to be some sort of comedy, right?
It must be. Although,
I,
yeah,
I mean, it just feels like it would be a comedy-esque thing, which comedy works in Star Wars, but
yeah,
and maybe it's just a bad taste of Love and Thunder still.
yeah,
I
that's
mean, I
probably
love Taika Waititi. Yeah, he's great, and everybody has a bad day at the office. That
yeah,
was a real bad day at the office.
yeah.
And I would not want to see that kind of humor brought
No.
into a feature film. And Star Wars is on shaky ground. I mean, they haven't had a movie come out since Rise of Skywalker. How many years ago was that? That's got like 4 years or something. I don't know
Yeah,
how long it's
kinda
been,
there.
but they I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I mean, I'll give it a shot, I guess. I would much rather them sort of focus on, hey, let's sort of reset, the sequel trilogy. Like, let's either go really far into the future, like really far in the future, or take me back into the past. Like just do Knights of the Old Republic or something, and put that in film form, or something.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think they're going that way, unfortunately. But I mean, he's cool. I like it. I'm just a little hesitant on
Mhm.
what his ultimate take would be. His stuff worked in Mando, like that scene with the
Yeah.
stormtroopers trying to shoot, the, and then, like they're aiming right at it, and the blaster is just going. I mean, that was hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's definitely shown he can do comedy. Can I sit with a 2 hour and 15 minute movie like that? I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I think it'll depend on if we get, Thor Taika Waititi or Jojo Rabbit slash Hunt for the Wilder People
Yeah.
Taika Waititi. If it's the latter, where he does like comedy that's also very like emotionally poignant, then maybe if it's a kind of like a small character driven story, that could work. I don't know. I'm kind of coming
Yeah.
around on it a little bit. But if they're wanting him to lead into like sort of the wacky slapsticky stuff, get it out of my Star Wars. I don't want it.
Yeah, and I believe that he is a very smart man.
Yeah.
he's got to be aware of what the reaction was to Love and Thunder. And I would imagine that just a little bit of self-reflection, even as, he as a filmmaker was probably in the editing room being like, you know what, some of this stuff's just not really working. Like it
Yeah.
didn't really land. And I think he's smart enough to realize that, hey, Love and Thunder shtick probably not going to go over well with Star Wars. But the fact that his movie is progressing, whereas everyone else has like died on the
Yeah.
vine. I mean,
Mm.
maybe he's got a really cool concept and a really cool story, and they're like, well, we're gonna roll with it because we like the idea behind it. The Patty Jenkins one is, I mean, we all knew that was dead long ago.
I was keeping hope alive, because it wasn't official yet, and, like, the Taika Waititi thing was dead too. For a while, they were like, "Yeah, he's not doing that, he's off doing something else." So, I don't know. I felt like there was room to hope
I
for
don't
Rogue
know.
Squadron.
I feel like I feel like Patty Jenkins is probably a very strong-willed individual, and I think that the
Alright.
performance, no, in terms of what she wants creatively, and I think that
Mhm.
clashes with, you gotta fit kind of in a box with Star Wars, right? Just like a lot of the directors at Marvel, they got, well, until recently, they had to fit in a box. What Kevin Feige wants, look at Edgar Wright, gets fired off of Ant-Man because he won't sort of do the thing that Kevin Feige wants him to do, for better or worse.
Right.
And I think Patty Jenkins very strong individual and was like, no, I want to do this, and they said nope. That ain't working. Even though we put you out in front of an X-wing and made a whole song and dance
Yeah.
and did all that. um and I was actually watching a YouTuber, John Campy, had a segment on this, and I guess his take on this seems like Bob Iger kind of saying, like, because we're all expecting Kathleen Kennedy to leave Lucasfilm shortly after Indiana Jones is released, right? They're not going to fire her or anything before Indiana Jones is released, but she will leave at some point. And
Why do you
his thing,
think that? Is that, like is that the scuttlebutt that she's being
oh
let
yeah, the
go?
scuttlebutt is like she's basically been shown the door, but it's one of those things like we're not going to quote unquote, if she leaves before Indiana Jones comes out, it looks really bad, right? Because then people will
Right.
assume Indiana Jones is terrible and she was quote unquote fired and out the door. But it's been, I think, for the past 6 months. He said, I mean, there was one report that came out and said she's already gone, like she's already. Said she's going to quote unquote resign from Lucasfilm. And anyway, John Campy was like, they're resetting the decks. Bob Iger's like, all this crap that's in development, quote unquote, these
Yeah.
movies that are being made that are not coming out, they're all being axed, and whoever takes over Lucasfilm is going to have kind of like a clean slate to sort of go forward and do what they want to do. I
Shit.
don't know if there's any truth to that, no idea. But yeah, I can't. I don't know. I just want good Star Wars movies. Like I want good Star Wars movies. That's all I care about. So if Rogue Squadron sounded awesome.
It did
Like
sound pretty awesome.
sounded awesome. Like I love those games. I love just the idea of X-wings and TIE fighters shooting each other down in space. Come on. But I also don't think the last Wonder Woman did her any favors.
No.
With in my opinion, that was an awful movie. It was so
It
bad.
was not my favorite.
It was bad. You can just admit, hey, just like Taika Waititi, bad day at the office, right? Bad day at the office. And yeah, so that's the news. We'll see. Star Wars Celebration's coming up here in a few months, I think. So
Oh,
I think we're
yeah.
probably going to get a lot of information, a lot of big information dump as to what the future of Star Wars entails theatrically.
That'll be
Um,
exciting.
we
Yeah.
got good stuff on TV. We don't need to worry about that, or do we? Let's talk
Oh,
about
okay.
The Minds of Mandalore, Episode 2, Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Let's kick it off. How's this get going?
Well, we start, of course, on Tatooine
Of course,
because we
it's the
can
most
never
popular
escape.
most popular planet in the galaxy.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Tatooine, but we cannot get away from it. But it is Bunta Eve on Tatooine,
Yeah.
and our girl, who, although to be honest, like I'm never sad to go back to Tatooine if we're going to be hanging out with Peli Motto because I just love her. I love Amy
Yeah.
Sedaris. I love this weird character. I think here's a perfect example of humor that lands in the Star Wars world for me. Like
Mhm.
she's just funny and enjoyable. So she's like hustling a Rodian when Mando shows up.
What
That whole thing with
a
the
rich
Jawas was
Rhodian,
great.
a rich Rhodian,
Yeah.
who's running Tatooine now. Boba Fett, just like Grief Karga, I think Tatooine is starting to see money and wealth and prosperity come its
Ooh.
way. So
I guess everybody's gonna be able to get themselves a rainbow speeder now. Good for
maybe,
them.
maybe.
But yeah, that whole beat was a lot of fun. Mando shows up, of course, because he's looking for the part. The fetch quest has sent him to Tatooine to get this part, but she doesn't have one because Grandpa they don't make them anymore.
Yeah.
Instead, she pulls another hustle and sells him a droid. After all this whole like, I can only work with this one droid. We must resurrect him from the dead. And he's like, yeah, I'll take this shitty fucking can. Whatever, it's fine.
It's weird.
Mhm.
It's a weird pivot.
Yeah.
I would argue possibly some poor storytelling, just generally, in how this is all sort of set up. But we do get to see R5D4 back again, which obviously a very famous Star Wars character in the very original New Hope. It
Oh,
Oh, you did not
I
recognize
did not
R5D4?
recognize him. No, no, no,
Yeah,
of
remember?
course.
He had a bad power converter, and that's how Luke Skywalker didn't buy Luke Skywalker originally bought
Yeah.
that droid, but he had the bad power converter, and so R2D2 was the one that R2 or Luke actually ended up buying. And the funny thing about R5D4, I don't think this is canon anymore, but previously he was a force sensitive droid,
What?
and he sacrificed in that opening sequence there with Luke Skywalker and them when the Jawas are selling him, he actually through the Force understands that R2D2 is the most important droid to have all this, and he sacrifices himself in order to let
What?
R2D2 go. Yeah, it's crazy. There's all kinds of cool stuff in the non-canon stuff, but yeah,
Mhm.
R5D4 is back.
All right. Well, awesome. So after all of that, he ends up they like set up his ship so that the droid can
Oh,
be in
oh,
there.
wait,
What?
wait.
What? What?
I'm sorry. I forgot one thing
What?
that I loved
What?
about this scene. I love the fact that the Jawas, basically, Amy Stars is using the Jawas to fuck over this Rhodian.
Yes.
I
Yes.
thought it was
He
so
is,
amazing.
and she speaks what was it, Jawaiese or Jaw?
Jawa E something, yeah, I
Yes.
don't know.
Yes. I don't know that I've ever heard a human speak Jawa before. So that was
I feel like she spoke that last season. I feel like we saw her with a Jawa
okay.
last season and she did that. But it's
Yeah.
still funny every time she does it. And
Absolutely.
she's missing a tooth now. How'd she miss a tooth?
I feel like there was like a story behind how she lost the tooth. I think she lost it last season.
Oh gosh, see, I don't even remember that. I gotta go back and like rewatch all these. It's been too long. I
Yeah.
forget the little details like that.
Yeah. I mean, that just sounds like a really good way to spend a chill day too, just like rewatching the first two seasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they head to Mandalore and there's like some cute like father son moments again talking about the instruments and like we're really getting a new side of Din Djarin in this. Like he has definitely embraced space daddyhood. He's like now sort of imparting the ways of the Mandalore onto Grogu in a way that he didn't before. Like there was an emotional bond there, but now he's like actually really fulfilling that role and like nurturing him, which is sweet and new. I think worthy of
Yeah.
note, and
He's
turns out
taking on the
very helpful.
responsibilities of raising the foundling.
He is indeed. He is indeed. So they head to Mandalore, and turns out
It's poison though. They
maybe.
can't though, Rachel. They can't go to Mandalore because the atmosphere is so poisoned that no one would go there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, twist. Twist that turned out to not be a twist. I really thought for sure that they were going to subvert our expectations. I will say the one thing they did to
No.
subvert our expectations is they are just moving the plot along quickly.
Oh
So
yes.
the droid gets off and something happens and he has to use his pressurized suit, which to me feels like maybe we could have just used the pressurized suit, but apparently that's droid work. So he
Yes.
gets out,
Writing.
and turns out that the planet is not poisoned, but it is full of Morlocks,
Yep.
aka Alamites. We get some like cool little fight here where he's, wielding the dark saber, still not very well. But he manages to defeat them because he is a freaking Mandalore after all. As
Well, not right now.
Well, I mean, I don't know. This feels like
Alyssa and I were
gray
having
area.
this conversation. We were watching this because she said she was actually getting kind of tired of Grogu. She's like, Disney's just
Whoa.
milking Grogu constantly, and she's like, the show's called The Mandalorian. I want to see this, the Mandalorian doing stuff, not constantly cutting to Grogu. And I was like, well, technically, Din is not a Mandalorian right now, based on his own beliefs, and the only one who is Grogu. Like Grogu is technically a Mandalorian right
Yeah,
now.
wouldn't
So
that
the
be the
show's
trip?
really about Grogu.
Well, I mean, Grogu gets some action beats this episode, which I think is they're very creative in how they're able to like find ways to make this puppet be able to do shit.
Yeah.
Um, so Mando is wandering around trying to find his way to these magical waters and falls prey to it. Actually, I think very cool trap, which is like, I guess it's sort of like a um Darth Maul when he was a spider person, like
Yes. Yeah.
kind of vibe. Or yeah, there is some sort of creature in a mech suit that traps him and is going to spit roast him, and not in the sexy way.
I think like he's just draining him of like all of his bodily fluids or something.
Right.
It's I don't know if that's to keep that thing alive. It's got a very like junkyard Grievous vibe to this
Yeah.
creature, which I like.
Yeah.
And I what I actually think is kind of interesting is when Din gets caught in this initial sort of trap, he's looking at this Mandalorian helmet that's like melted.
Mhm.
And it was like, well, that's Beskar. What what could do something like that? So I'm sure that is to be revealed at some point.
Oh.
Because I'm pretty sure, like in Rebels, right? Like Sabine created some sort of weapon for the Empire that like melted Beskar. And
Right.
if you look at the very beginning of Mandalorian season one, when uh, they've got all the melted Beskar with the Imperial stamp on it and shit like that. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting little thing that I saw. I was like, oh, that helmet's like melted, which explains why he's looking at it, probably thinking to himself, what the hell?
Right, I did not catch that. That is a very
Yeah,
cool detail. I'm curious, I love the design of whatever this creature is, and I'm
yeah.
wondering, is that another Phil Tippett joint? Because it totally looks like his Mad God creatures.
I was because I just watched Mad God like 2 or 3
Okay.
days ago, and I was like, "Oh, this does remind me of something like that from that film." So I don't know. It looked cool. I love the eyeball. I thought the
Yeah.
eyeball was just really creepy, and it just had in it had a. I like seeing new monsters
Mhm.
and aliens in Star Wars. In the their version of the Morlocks, I thought looked cool,
Yeah.
and I thought this thing looked cool. So I was happy that it was suitably dangerous and frightening looking. And the CG or whatever they used was amazing on it. Like I take back my concern. I know when we a couple episodes back, we're like, hey, we've watched the trailer. Look at the CG in this trailer. It looks very volumey. But
Yeah.
so far
No.
these first two episodes, I'm not getting that vibe at all, which I'm happy for.
So I googled it, well, and it looks like it was not by Phil Tippett, but it is actually like a salute to his work and like
Okay.
his obviously his previous history with Star Wars and
Yep.
everything. He is a local, and my partner rode BART with him once.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And as a kid, my best friend's husband, her his father and both his parents were reverends, and they married him, Phil Tippett. And so as a kid, he went over to Phil Tippett's house, and Phil Tippett was showing him like all of his Star Wars stuff that he made.
Oh my god.
I know. Isn't that
Jeez.
crazy?
That is crazy. What a
Yeah.
small world.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Bay Area, like, I don't know, but I was just like, this dude rides BART, but he was just like some weird beardy dude, and they started talking about Star Wars. He's like, yeah, I made the AT-ATs and blah 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 blah
You
blah.
know, it's interesting because you always hear, and maybe we'll discuss about how people could say, well, R5 shows up, it's just shrinking the world, right? You have this
Yeah.
giant galaxy, and it's like, okay, you're taking another character from the original trilogy, and they're running across them. But that story is a perfect example of how that stuff happens
Yeah,
in our life all the time,
you're
right? Just
right.
random weird stuff where it's like. How, I mean, what are you shrinking the world because this person went over to Phil Tippett's house and he got to see
Yeah.
all his stuff? So, fuck that argument. It's good.
All right.
Give me more nostalgia. Put it in my eyeballs. Fan service. I'm fine with it.
All right. I guess we just solved another problem.
Spin
Turns
decree.
out
Yep.
girls can solve problems too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Mando is in, I guess, the draining pod or whatever the hell, draining cage.
Yeah.
Like he's a sun bear. That's really sad. And he Grogu manages to escape though. He like speeds out of there in his little cradle thing.
It's so funny. He
Yeah,
tries to get him out. I mean, he tries to
he
use the
does.
force to get him out.
He does. He does. And like talk about a planet that is not poisoned. Like every turn, there's another creature that's like, "Rawr, rawr, rawr," and
Yeah,
like,
there's like weird glowing alligator dragon things in the sewers down there. It's
yes,
like, are you? I'm like, every time I saw a new creature, I'm like, really, Bo? Really? You didn't come over once? Yeah, he's like literally like, oh, her planet's right there. It's like, it's
right.
probably 5 minutes for a starship. You never thought once, Bo Katan. Come on now.
Yeah. So thankfully he got a little lesson in chartography and manages to get to Kalabaw, where he enlists her help. She hops in her Mandomobile and they head to the planet. She fights her way to him and actually in a very cool scene uses the dark saber to finally take down this like mechanized
Yeah,
bug man. um like it takes a few rounds, but seeing her wield it after having seen the very clumsy wielding of Din Djarin, god, why is his name so hard,
I do
um
that too.
is it's very interesting. I feel like I don't remember exactly how the lore goes. Do you have to actually kill the previous wielder or
You
can
know, you
you?
just gotta win it in battle. That's the thing.
Mm,
Like, the lore is very wishy-washy, right? Like you're
yeah.
supposed to win it in battle. And the whole thing
Right,
is Sabine, when she got it, it's because she just found it. Remember, because Darth Maul had it. Darth Maul
right,
is actually like the only person who has ever actually won it in a battle. And then Darth Maul just had it like sitting on a table, and Sabine found it and then took
point.
it and started like, "Hey, I'm gonna train with Kanan. He's gonna show me how to wield this thing." And then she just gave it to Bo Katan. So Bo Katan
Mhm,
never won it in any battle. And then they've sort of hinted and explained that the reason Mandalore was destroyed was because Bo Katan took the dark saber without winning it
mhm.
in battle, and now she's blamed for basically
Got it,
getting the
got it,
entire thing destroyed.
got it. So it's like a witch hunt situation.
But
Got it,
she's
got it.
awesome with that saber.
She's awesome, period. This
Yeah.
episode really reaffirmed to me how much I love Bo-Katan. Like, I loved her when she thought he was coming back and she was gonna go read him the riot act, and then the moment she has
Let's go take care of
she's
him
like,
right now. I thought she was gonna kill him.
I
I was like,
know, right?
is she gonna go kill this dude?
She has had it, and I appreciate that because I know that energy very well. And then there's, like, these great moments with her and Grogu. They have a few different exchanges where, she's ultimately playing off this puppet, and I think they're very sweet moments. But there's also a very emotional moment that you see her when she first comes to the planet, and there's like a mixture of hope and despair and nostalgia and regret, and like all of that really comes through in her performance as she's coming into the planet. I loved all this stuff, and I just love Bo. She's such a cool, complicated character.
Yeah. And Katie Sackhoff is an awesome actress
Yeah.
also. Like I love I mean I've loved her since Starbuck back in
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica. That's where I
Yeah.
first saw her. I'm like, she's just so good at being able to
Mhm.
portray these very complicated, roles and make you sort of believe it.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's great.
Yep. She's really great. So she rescues him and then they have like I guess Mandalorian top ramen and it's like they kind of have this it's interesting to kind of watch their dynamic.
He won't take off his mask. He just like drinks as quick as he can.
I know.
I'm
I'm
just
like, this is not good for misophonia, sir. I'm gonna need to take that mask off. And like I do enjoy because we had so much time like living in the lore of Mandalore, with Clone Wars, it's such a fleshed out world. Watching kind of the dynamic of these two people with shared history, but like pretty divergent beliefs. Like there's enough rich history there for us to be able to kind of like dig in and live in the space between these two ideologies.
Yeah, and it's so weird though because and I can see as someone who's just watching this as a casual viewer
Right.
who could be completely confused about what's going on because you're kind of
True.
like, well, w- wasn't she in Death Watch? Wasn't she on that same moon, basically hanging out? Like, how come Din is so different than her, and why is she calling them a cult and all this stuff when they're both kind of both of them were exiled essentially in their own way.
Yeah.
And I love when they see they come up to the city, and it's like, oh yeah, that's where her sister was ruling, right? You're
Yeah.
literally walking around. What we watched was glorious
Mhm.
in Clone Wars, and now
Mhm.
the whole thing is just completely destroyed.
Yeah, like the former domes and stuff. Like you really, I don't know. It for me, it drove home the destruction and visually, it's so dystopian. It looks like it's been 1,000 years.
Yeah,
Really, yeah. More so than just the explosions and stuff like that. You really understand the depth of the destruction and hellfire that was rained down by the Empire and your best friend Palpatine.
love
Um.
them, love that man.
So
I'll
Mando's
be his
like,
apprentice.
oh my god.
I just want to bring peace and order to the galaxy, Rachel.
Oh my god, Matthew. So he's like, "Thank you. You did me a solid. I totally owe you one, but first I got to go take my magical bath." And she's like, "Dude, you don't know where you're going."
Well, what I love about it is she's like, "You're nuts. There's nothing special about it. It's just like a pond."
Yeah.
Basically, it's like you're not gonna find any like crazy cool stuff in there, but I'll take you there because
Yeah.
she clearly does not believe any of this stuff. Like she has it's like she has a drive to lead the Mandalorians back to sort of prominence, but in terms of like the actual myths that surround them that have been around for
Mhm.
10,000 years, she doesn't actually believe any of that stuff. And so
Yeah.
she's looking at him like, you are so far gone, dude. But what I love, oh, well, I'll get to it when we get to the waters of the mind.
Yes. Well, they get there and he is awestruck by it. Like you don't even need to see his face. You can see it in his posture. You can just see it in his silence, how awestruck he is to be in the presence of this mythical place. And then she heads over to the plaque and was like, "Hold on." Like it's like a field trip in school. Like we've
Burst your
all
rubber hill here.
yeah. Like we've all been on like that walk or been to like wherever you go that's like of historical significance, there's always this like bronze plaque. So I don't know, it's like kind of this real touch and that drives home the mundanity of this to her. Like this is just like a landmark.
Because she mentioned, she's like, oh yeah, I took the oath, I took the creed when I was a little princess and everybody
Uh-huh.
gave me gifts and yeah, blah 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 blah. So it's like you have to go through this, but it's like when you're a kid and you have to go through some sort of dumb celebration, like, all right,
Yeah.
whatever, I have to do this. But not that you actually believe any stuff, but this drives home to me because he's just like, I'm walking into the water, right? He's like,
Yeah.
I'm going in, I'm doing this. This is me. And what I really greatly appreciate, at least so far, I know there's this sort of drum on the internet like, show Pedro Pascal's face. We want to see his face. How can you keep him behind the mask? When are they going to
Yeah.
get him out of the mask so he's not wearing it anymore? I love the fact that this show is making this character stick to his core beliefs. And
Yeah.
he's like, this is what I believe. Yeah, you're saying I'm in a cult, you're saying this, you're saying that, whatever. No, my way is I'm going to take this sort of oath. I'm going to bathe in the waters. And I think he might be opening her eyes a little bit because he tells her at one
Yeah.
point when she's like, what, this oath is done. He's like, look, what else do we have if not
Yeah.
our creed? Like this is what's important for Mandalorians to sort of come
Yeah.
together. That's going to be the driving thing that brings them all together, is this sort of oath and this sort of creed. And I love that they're not just giving into sort of, at least
Yeah.
now, what people want. Like, oh, just let him take his mask off. Let Bo-Katan show him that you don't really need to have your helmet on. I love that
Right.
he's going all the way through with it.
Well, I mean, I feel like it would be one of those things where it undercuts the significance of the moment that he takes it off for Grogu, that that
Yeah.
sacrifice, it is, he could have just kept it off after that. Like, well, you can't unring that bell. I might as well take it off. But like, it's so meaningful for him, and therefore taking it off is so meaningful. But you're right. I think there is something about like sincerity versus cynicism that is happening between the two of them. There is also another moment I think is interesting when they're walking in here, and she says something about her father being like a great man and sacrificing himself for
Yeah.
Mandalore, and he like very seriously says, "This is the way," and you see it kind of like
He, like,
connect.
stops. Yeah, he, like,
Yeah,
stops walking, and, like, he's taking it super seriously because she just said, like, "My dad died for Mandalore," and he takes that really seriously.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know, I'm enjoying this dynamic between them.
Yep.
I don't know. I know you're gonna have some complaints about the writing, but I think this character stuff in this is actually really solid. So I will take up
100%
for
agree.
it.
I
Um,
agree.
so he steps into the magical waters of Mandalore and begins his creed. I genuinely gasped when this happens when he gets drugged underwater. It's so abrupt. And Bo, like the boss that she is, dives in after him. Underwater jetpack action, which I did not know was a thing, but is dope. Um, and then finds him down at the bottom of the water. On her way up, she spies something mythical, shall we say.
And as my fiancée said, "I think she just shit her pants." Yeah. The mythosaur,
Yes!
is just hanging out in the
Yes!
sacred waters.
That's the living
It's
waters.
true, all of it.
That was awesome because it's like Cthulhu size too. Like
Oh,
I
it's
don't
huge,
know,
yeah.
I assumed it was gonna be like big, but like
Have you not ever seen the Star Wars Holiday Special when Boba Fett rides the mythosaur?
I mean, I saw it and I had 104-degree temperature and I
Oh my gosh.
wanted to die.
Oh, okay. It's big. Yeah, it's
That
big.
thing was a fever nightmare.
That's
Okay,
probably the best way to watch it in a fever nightmare, honestly.
I just remember like Grandpa Wookiee's masturbatorium. I was like, I don't know what's
Yeah,
happening.
let's not talk about that.
You see that there's like a documentary coming out about it?
I heard something about it, but I don't really know much about the
I
documentary.
got a press release about it. I'll forward
Oh
it over to
my.
you because I was like, when I saw it, I was like, "Is Matthew gonna make me watch this?"
Well, I am now.
Oh
It's a documentary. It's a learning opportunity.
no! So yeah, so Bo saves him, and there's just like they land up on the steps outside the water, and there's just a beat where you see her like, "Oh
She's like,
shit!"
what? Well, because the mythosaur is, that is the legend, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
how the Mandalorians basically got the planet, is they were able to finally tame the legendary mythosaurs.
yeah.
And back 10,000 years ago, they used to ride them around into battle and shit like that. I would
Yeah.
imagine it's similar to something like in Game of Thrones, right? Like,
Literally was thinking I was like, "Which one came first?"
yeah, yeah, I would imagine something similar to that. But the idea that no Mandalorian even believes these things existed back in the day, really, unless you're a zealot, like super,
Yeah.
like no, no, all this. And okay, so I'm going to ask you, what do you think Bo Katan's thoughts are? The episode goes to black. What is she thinking in that moment? And what do you think? How do you think she's going to react when we get into episode 3?
I mean, I don't know that she's gonna go full true believer, but I think that the cynicism that we have seen until this moment, some of that is gonna melt away. Like she's been confronted with the fact that her planet is no longer is actually not poisoned, is actually not cursed, and that the mythosaur lives. I mean, like, I think it's going to be a like paradigm shift for Bo. What do you think?
This could go one of two ways. One way is the way I hope it goes is that she kind of comes, because this is a very biblical thing, right? It's all
Yeah.
about baptism and
Mm.
rebirth and
Mhm.
things of this nature. It's like,
Yes.
Moses is going to lead his people back to the promised land, so to speak. That's really what this is sort of aping. What I hope is that Bo-Katan kind of, the sort of fighting between them kind of comes to an end, and that they work together and figure out a way to make
Right.
this all happen. My worry and concern is, she's like, here's my opportunity to lead the Mandalorians,
Right.
and does something to Din, or tries to kill him, take the dark saber, and then she's gonna ride a mythosaur around or something, and everyone's gonna follow her. I don't know. It could go one of two ways. It could become
You're
friends,
right.
or they could become mortal enemies at this point in time.
Right.
Because remember, Din, she still kind of looks at Din as her rival, right?
Yeah.
He's got the dark saber. That's what she wants. And if she's like, "Are you kidding me? He's got the dark saber." And he went and bathed in the waters of Mandalore, and there's a fucking mythosaur just hanging out down there.
Uh-huh.
Why is he the chosen one? Not on my watch.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
would
know.
like I would like to think that everything that happened with Satine and the Death Watch would like make her less. I mean, she is who she is, but my hope is that it is the former, that if we're leading towards him leading the Mandalorians, like if he's going to become Mandalorian Big Poobah, right?
Mandalore.
Yes. Um she's going to have to either take out Bo-Katan or earn her trust. And I think in other shows, this would be like a season-long arc, but this thing is all business, all full steam ahead, so they might just
Yeah.
cut to her being like, "Yeah, you're the person to lead us." I don't know. I don't know.
We're gonna find out, but they're not gonna show us a mythosaur, and that thing's not gonna come out at some point, and
Oh, yeah.
someone's gonna be
Oh,
writing
yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah. It's
I-
happening.
like, there's not much left on that planet, but it's almost like when you saw the bait or the Rancor in Book of Boba Fett. It's like someone's
Yeah.
gonna ride that. Boba Fett,
Yeah.
you're gonna see Boba Fett ride that at some point. Maybe John
Ugh.
Favreau just likes to have his characters ride monsters. Maybe that's his
Mhm.
weird like kink or something. Like, let me just put classic Star Wars characters on monsters. They can ride them around all the time. This episode I thought was, aside from my quibbles of some of the writing in it,
Yes.
and the leaps of logic that I'm like, no, I still think that this was a really, really good episode. This kind of
Mhm.
brought me back from the precipice. Um,
Oh, good.
yeah, so I'm back on board. What I will say is, and this was not something that I had noticed, but I did find it funny. I was just kind of watching some YouTube reactions of this, and there's one YouTuber who was like, "Do you realize how much walking takes place in this show?" And he was like, and I was like, this episode in particular, because he was talking about this I think in the first episode, where they're just walking around Grief Karga's town, right? It's just walking, walking, walking. Everybody's walking everywhere, and I'm like, this is like they walk down to the mines. Then basically Grogu walks back, kind of like floats back through the mines. Then they go back
Yeah.
to Kisaka. Then they go back, and then they walk back through the mines all the way down there. I'm like, there's a lot of walking in this
Yeah.
show.
I need to
Um,
see these Star Wars Fitbits. They're
yeah,
hitting their 10,000.
it's like they do have like jetpacks. Why don't just fly around wherever they go?
Right?
But
Right?
yeah, overall, I really like this episode. We're starting to. Oh, we forgot. Grogu's kind of talking. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of like easily overlooked because like even Amy Starr's like, did he just talk to me? Are these his
Uh-huh.
first words? And he sounds kind of. He's not like speaking basic, which is Star Wars equivalent of English.
Yeah.
Um, he's it's got like his own unique language, but I don't know if it's like kind of like baby sounds or if he's actually like progressing into speaking.
Ooh.
Because I think they're gonna have Grogu speak at some point.
What do you
It's
think
gonna
his
happen.
first word will be?
Hmm. I hope it's not something like "daddy" or something.
Oh
Like I
gosh.
don't want that. I don't want that.
The
Um,
internet will lose it. Like already everybody on the internet is calling Pedro Pascal daddy. If Grogu does too, I think the singularity will occur.
yeah, I don't want that. I don't really know. I haven't really thought about what I don't think it'll be a single word. I think it would be a phrase. I think he'd probably
You're gonna be
say
like,
something.
"May the
Oh,
force
you
be
know
with
what?
you."
No, it's probably going to be this is the way.
This is the way. You're
That's the
right.
most obvious, right? Like this is the way.
Yeah, you're
You know,
right, you're right,
something's
you're
going to
right.
happen, and Grogu's going to say this is the way, in like the cutest baby voice possible, and then the internet will
Ooh,
melt.
I'm not gonna love that. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't need the baby talk. Like, the little baby gurgles are fine. They're a little more than I would want, but they're okay. But if we have to deal with, like, 4 more seasons of baby talk, I'm gonna be bummed.
Would Grogu? I I get okay. So obviously he's a different species.
Yeah,
Um, he wouldn't be. I guess he's 50 years. I always forget. Like he's technically 50 something years old. So he
yeah,
probably has. But he's been raised around like basic speaking
yeah,
people
yeah,
forever. So wouldn't
yeah,
he speak, for lack of a better term, basic? Like when his first
yeah,
words. Like why would he speak whatever his species, whatever the Yoda species is? He
yeah.
wouldn't speak their language.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be, and I think it's gonna be like a Yaddle situation where we're like getting a normal voice, not like a Yoda reverse speaky kind of thing.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. I think we're gonna hear. I think like like the finale, like he's gonna say, Jen's gonna say, "This is the way," and then Baby Yoda's gonna say, "This is the way." I think that's
Yeah.
my prediction. I think
Yeah,
you
it's gotta be "This
are
is the way."
correct.
I mean, that's the phrase of the show, so definitely
Although,
gotta be
if
it.
he wanted to like bring back a season 1, it could be "I have spoken." That'd be good.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
I
Like,
have spoken.
he just wrecks Thrawn, "I have spoken."
Okay, I'm in. I'm
Yeah.
sold on talking on Grogu now. I mean,
Hire us, Lucasfilm. Kathleen, before you go, hire us. We can write these scripts, we can get these great ideas flowing. Come on now, we can do it. But yeah,
yeah,
overall, really good episode. It
agree.
was much longer than the first one, which was nice.
Yes.
And we got some cool monsters, aside from a few plot quibbles. In dialogue, like when Din gets out of the thing, when he realizes like the air is, oh, you can breathe it, and he's like, Bo-Katan was right. And I was like, that she was not right. I'm like, come on, that's a bad line.
Yeah.
Bo-Katan was right. Like, no, she really wasn't. But yeah, I like it. I
Yeah,
liked it.
me too. What I liked about it, last time it felt a little too samey, like it didn't expand the world at all. It was just like some of the old hits of things we've done before. The formula was very much what we had seen before. It felt like backtracking. This one feels like we're going somewhere. This one has some momentum and it introduced new things. We saw new creatures. We had
Yeah.
some really cool fight scenes. This one to me was like a definite level up, from like, to me, writing perspective, but also just from an entertainment perspective. I had a much better time watching this one.
They definitely should have released both of these.
Yeah, I thought that's
And,
what they
and
did. I was, yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, and the thing is, like, you got to have enough self awareness to realize that the internet is not rational. And if you put out like, okay, here's the first episode of Mandalorian since Book of Boba Fett, everyone's excited, and you put kind of like a lackluster episode out, internet's gonna rage. You don't want to get your show off onto that kind of footing. So I
Yeah.
would have just released both of them and been like, here you go,
Ugh, Disney knows
excite,
they have us by the balls. They can put out
yeah,
whatever they want. We're like, "Mm,
yeah,
Grogu, we're gonna
yeah.
watch."
So yeah, that's the Mandalorian.
Yeah,
Like I said, I thought it would be a few more episodes. I didn't think that this sort of bathing in the waters of
right,
Mandalore thing would be to like the finale, and we're
right.
already done with it. So
I appreciate
he
it.
he's now a Mandalorian again, and now he's going to have to go back to the armor with proof. Maybe he has Bo-Katan in tow. Here's my witness. I was there. Oh, by the way, armor. All right, you should have flown over there because the air is breathable. It's perfectly breathable. Um, yeah, I can't. I hope they show that conversation. Like, do any of the Mandalorians like believe him when he's like, no, I swear to God, it's breathable. You can go there and just chill out, have a short vacation down there on the glass planet of Mandalore. It's fine. Just don't go down where the Morlocks live.
Oh my god, the Morlocks.
You'll be okay. So All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Nobody's Listening. We'll be back next week with episode chapter 18, episode 3, or whatever that's going to be. I'm very excited to see what the conversation between Bo and Din is after this. And
Woo!
I don't even know if Din saw the mythosaur. Because that's the thing. Like, he gets drug under, but he's completely, like, out. Like, it looked like
Yeah,
he was drowning at the bottom of that thing. And I'm like, well, did
yeah.
the mythosaur yank him down? Like, what? Who pulled him down
Will
that
we get a
far into that thing?
flashback and see maybe he like I mean we saw the mythosaur forehead eye. Did he like look into the eye of the mythosaur and then faint?
I don't know. Um,
Oh,
so we'll find out then. So
okay.
stay tuned. Thanks, everybody.
Bye everybody. Yeah, totally. Perfect.